Continuing on in section 1.2, what's an expression for the spending money you have left after depositing 2/5 of your wages in savings? So we're taking 2/5 of our wages and we're depositing them into savings, and we want to know how much spending money we have left. So we got to figure out what our variables are going to be here. So we're talking about our wages. So from our wages, I'm going to make that W. And that's the amount that can change. But what's happening is every time we're depositing 2/5 of our wages. So when we deposit, it's like we start off with our wages and we subtract. We put that money in the bank. It's no longer part of our spending money. It's in our savings. We can't just run to Gordy's and spend it. So, and it's 2/5 of, in math, a lot of times means times. So of our wages. So our wages minus 2/5 of our wages. And that is our expression. Now we want to evaluate our expression for different dollar amounts. If our wages are 40, we plug 40 in for W in both spots. And remember, we have to multiply first before we can subtract. 2/5 times 40 is going to be 16. So we'll have, now we can subtract $24 left. And we had to multiply because of PEMDAS before we could subtract. Same thing if we did 50. We plug 50 in for W. We'd have to multiply before we could subtract. Here I get 20. And now I can subtract and get 30. And we can continue doing that with the 75 and the 100 as well. But it's the same idea there. We substitute in for our wages once we have our expression, and then simplify. Now, the shopping cost for an order at an online store is 1/10 the cost of the items you order. What is an expression for the total cost of a given order? So first thing we want to do is have the expression. So we need to figure out what's changing. Our shipping cost depends on the cost of the items. So it depends on our cost. I'm going to use C for cost as my variable. So we have the cost of the items, and then our shipping cost is in addition to that. So we add on a shipping cost, and it's 1/10 of the cost of our items. So 1/10 times C. And this is going to be our expression. Now, if we had an order of $43, for example, we plug our 43 in for our cost. And just like before, PEMDAS says we're going to multiply before we can add. I multiply here and get $4.30. Bring down the rest of our problem. Now we add and get $47.30. I could do the same thing with 103, for example. Plug 103 in. We got to multiply first. $10.30. So it's going to be $113.30. And we could do the same with 75 and 95. Okay, so the big thing there is to figure out our expression first. Are we adding to it? Are we subtracting to it? When we deposit things into the bank, it takes away our spending money. When we're charged an additional cost, like shipping, for example, it's added on. And that gives us our expression. And then the other thing to remember here is that when we plug in our values, we still have to follow PEMDAS. We need to multiply before we can add or subtract. Quick recap here for section 1.2. Powers can be used to shorten how we represent repeated multiplication, such as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. We can write that as 2 to the 6th power. Our base times itself, exponent number of times. When simplifying an expression, operations must be performed in the correct order, and that order is PEMDAS. Grouping symbols, exponents, multiply and divide, same time, left to right, and then add and subtract same time, left to right. And that's all I have for section 1.2.